Hello, welcome to the Breakthrough Hiring Show. I'm your host, James Mackey. Got a great episode for you today. We got Roenen Ben-Ami, who's the co-founder of Justt. Ronen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. We have a bit of a backstory here. My company, Secure Vision, does a lot of the recruiting for Justt in London and North America. So I've been working with the team here at Justt a little over a year, helping on a lot of go-to-market roles. So I think that primes this conversation quite well to talk about how to build teams. And today we're really going to be dialing into how to build globally distributed teams and what goes into that. So Ronen, I'm really excited to talk with you today. And just to start us off, it'd be great to share with our audience a little bit about you. Where are you based out of?
So I'm based out of the Tel Aviv office.
Nice, nice. And that's actually, so the company was initially founded in Tel Aviv, right?
Yeah, myself and my partner Ophir, we started the company in Tel Aviv, then started growing globally, having a lot of our customers in the US. We built out our US office as well as our London-based office.
Nice. And actually, I haven't had a chance to speak with you if you're on the founding story.
Oh, yeah.
And it'd be cool to hear that, like what to give you both the idea to start the company.
So myself, I come from the payment space. I actually worked in the anti-fraud space, and then moved over to the payment side of the world of risk. And I fell in love with the world of payments, to be honest. It's a very interesting world. I've been in this space since 2016, and I feel like I'm always learning something new. Coming from the anti-fraud side of things and seeing how that space was revolutionized by top companies in the industry using technology and machine learning, I learned about the world of credit card processing and risk and compliance and how to build a strong risk and compliance and merchant screening and monitoring team. I actually built those teams out for a company called Simplex that does credit card processing for fiat to crypto, and they were also an anti-fraud solution. And then I saw the gap that you can do a great job stopping true fraud with a great anti-fraud solution. And you can actually deal with legitimate merchants that provide their goods and services properly if you screen your merchants with the right process, but chargebacks still come in. It's called friendly fraud, first party misuse, or liar buyer, which is illegitimate claims by cardholders thinking that they might have done a mistake. They forgot what they purchased. Someone else in the family made the purchase, or they're actually trying to get something for free. I looked for a solution on the market for myself. I was a potential customer, and I didn't see a solution that solved my pain point. After building a solution that was specifically tailored to the crypto space that saved millions of dollars a year for the company I worked for, I saw an opportunity to both tailor this across industries, across merchants, and use machine learning to optimize the solution. That wasn't being done in the market. I met Ophir around 2018. We worked around the idea for about 2 years, and in 2020 we went all in on the project. And it's been a wild ride to bring something different to the market, showing the market that you don't just need a generic automated templated solution, but using the right domain expertise and methodology and technology, you can build a scaled solution that's tailored per response to each specific chargeback, using dynamic arguments and tailoring each response, and then using machine learning to optimize those results, finding where your weak spots are and running tests to improve over time. And yeah, it's been a very exciting ride working with top enterprise companies, mid-sized companies, and growing out our partnership end as well.
Yeah, it's been great to be part of the journey as well for the past year. And just to give some people some context on where you are today, I know there's VC backing. Is it Series B, right?
Yes,
Currently Series C. Okay.
yes. To date, we have raised the Series B.
Okay. And how many employees does Just currently have?
About 100, a little over 100 today, I believe.
Yeah, that's a significant growth over a 4-year period.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
That's wild. And so today we wanted to talk about building globally distributed teams, given that the company was founded in Tel Aviv, expanding your footprint into London and the United States. I know there's a lot of lessons learned there. in terms of being able to build that globally distributed workforce. What are some of the top lessons learned over the past few years building out an international team?
Yeah, on one end, it's really exciting to grow and to be able to really our commercial side of the company is being grown out in the London and US based offices. And to be able to get to that point, what I always say to the team is it's so exciting to know you have the top product in the market, and now we need to help the world understand what we're doing here that's so different. I call it the aha moment of why Justt is so different in the market and how you can help potential customers understand that. But to get to that point is so exciting, but there's a lot of challenges that come along with that. We invested a lot on building the right culture when we were just a Tel Aviv-based company. And as we grew out the London and US office, and we even have several people that are remote, we wanted them to be part of the Justt culture and who we are and what makes us unique. And that's not an easy task, especially because you're in different time zones, distance, FaceTime, getting with the actual teams, and just the level of collaboration you need to be successful. It takes a lot of investment in building those connections between the teams to get to that level. I always use the example that when Ophir and I started the company, all the decisions were being made by the two of us. We'd get on a call, we'd collaborate, and we'd make quick decisions and we'd move very fast. Today, it's about how we help the teams make the decisions and how we help them work together so that they can crack the code of the challenging decisions we need to make in the coming years and the growth we're looking to do and what we've already done. There's a lot of challenges ahead of us, and we want the team to be the decision makers and be hands-on, making it a success.
Yeah, for sure. And from a culture perspective, I'm excited to get into specifically what aspects of the culture need to be what do you really dial in on? My experience with Just has been the company is incredibly data driven, right? In decision making within the recruiting process. I don't think we made a single decision without looking at the data first, particularly when it came to role requirements and specifically too, if it became to tweaking role requirements. I think every time we made any kind of shift, it was evaluating folks in the metrics of the recruitment process, everything from the interview metrics to that funnel down to the size of the candidate pool and the specific skill sets, looking at industries and looking at adjacent industries and how that would impact, looking at comp, how that type of stuff would impact the size of the talent pool. But what's really cool about Just too is once we put together all of the data and we'd present, okay, here are our options, right? If we make this tweak with the data, this is how it impacts the size of the candidate pool or whatever it was. I'm just using the candidate pool as an example. Just usually your team would get back to us within 24 or 48 hours. And it would be like, even if it was a big decision, right? Like when your team has the data in front of them, it's fast. And we were able to correct course and move very quickly, which you start to see sometimes that starts to break down a little bit when you open up multiple offices in different time zones. But I've been impressed. Just has always been like very fast at making adjustments when they have the data in front of them. So I'm wondering, to me, that's what stands out when we talk about culture. I see a very like analytical, data-driven culture that moves fast. So I'm curious. There's of course a lot more to that, but from my seat where I stand, that's something that stood out to me about your culture.
Yeah, it's true. We really want to have a culture around that. We need to move fast. It's okay to make mistakes, but how do we learn from our mistakes, or how do we learn from our experiences in general so that we can be better? And there's a lot of positions that we have hired or we're hiring that they were the first time we ever hired for those specific positions. So we had a vision of what we wanted when we first started hiring for the position. But as you move along, you learn what great looks like for Justt and what will make a successful candidate for that specific position. And many times when you first start, you're not exactly sure what that looks like. So that's what's so great about when you are hiring, to have that hiring team, whether it be our internal team that we're working with, that's part of the hiring process, or with your team, to figure out, what does great look like for us, and what are we learning along the way that we can learn from each other and collaborate. So I
Hmm.
remember in the beginning when we first hire, we would have everybody would meet the individuals, and then we just write our feedback. And there wasn't enough collaboration between us. And we said, wait a minute, like then we'd get to the end and we're like, oh yeah, but I read your feedback. I read your feedback. But once you put us all in a room and we talk about our feedback, that's when the magic happens. And wait, oh yeah, I can actually learn from you of I saw that too. What does that actually mean? Do we want something like that in that position? And that's where what becomes really interesting is stopping along the way and communicating with one another of what we're seeing. Yeah, I think it's a key piece what you mentioned is moving fast and learning from what we're seeing along the way. It's actually one of our core values. We call them our core principles here at Justt. One of them is be the best. And that core principle is around learning from what we've done and improving as we go.
Yeah, and I think it's also there's a lot of nuance when it comes to moving fast, right? There are some decisions where it's when you clearly have the data in front of you, it's okay, now we have more information. Based on that information, let's make either continue with the same decision or make a new one. But let's just look at the data. Then there's other things when it comes to standards where it makes sense to hold on to that standard opposed to cutting corners and bringing like the wrong person on board. And so I think a good executive team, you always move as fast as you can, but if you need to leave a role open for a few months, do it until you get to that confidence level. It's never 100% confidence in hiring a person, right? So I'm going to have the perfect background, but there's still a ton of other variables like where they might be in their life or anything else that could throw off the success. But we should be able to get to a 90% confidence rating. And I don't think we should ever waver in that or say we need to move fast so we can hire tomorrow because ultimately getting the wrong person in the seat can set the company back several quarters. It can be a huge financial drain, a huge focus drain, and a huge opportunity cost. And it's massive. So I think with Justt, what I've seen just for other executives tuning in terms of how Justt has done really well hiring particularly over the past year since I've been involved is very fast to make decisions on data, but not lowering standards regardless of how difficult a search is. We've hired one manager in the US market and we had incredibly high standards. It happened to get filled really fast, but there's been other searches where it took longer. It took reaching out to people, exhausting a candidate pool, saying, okay, there's literally nobody else in this market we can reach out to, shifting, making a new decision based off the data, reaching out to that candidate pool and tweaking and not lowering our standards until we can make the hire. And sometimes that meant keeping the role open longer than we wanted to. But ultimately, that's going to give Justt the best opportunity to take advantage of the market opportunity that you have right now. So I think that's another
Okay.
piece. It's like your standards should be ridiculously high. Even if you're hiring the right way, like hiring should be hard. If it's not hard, then you're not like if you're trying to recruit the best people in the market, like the absolute best people, getting the best people is hard. Even when you're doing
Exactly.
it.
And do you know what great looks like? Because for each
Yeah.
position, what great looks like looks different. And that's what I always think about when we're hiring for a specific position. Do we know what great looks like for this position? Have we seen great before in this position? And if so, what does it look like? And how can we discover it during the hiring process? And exactly what you said, don't lower your standards. And there's been multiple times where it's defeating when you go through so many interviews and you're not finding that great. But when you do find it, you're like,
Yeah.
that's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
And
And they're few and far between.
yes, but when you bring on great, you see the difference. You see how fast they ramp up, how fast they get going, how fast they become part of the team. It's worth the wait.
Yeah, it is. I think like there's a misconception sometimes with executives when it comes to hiring. They're like, okay, if it's really hard and it's grueling and it's taking a lot of time, that means something's broken. And so the analogy that I like to use is winning the Super Bowl or the World Cup, is that easy? No, it's hard as shit. Like, it's
Right?
incredibly freaking hard. The difference
Yeah.
is if you're really good at it, it's hard. If you're not good at it, it's impossible.
Yeah.
Like you're just not gonna hide. And so again, it's like the standards should always be incredibly high. And sometimes that's hard to as startup executives, in my experience, and I'm sure yours as well, there's this immense kind of pressure to move fast and take advantage of the opportunity today, but sticking to your guns and being really disciplined when it comes to building a team is it's so freaking important. Otherwise, you're just the headaches. It's like the headaches that you'll have 6 months, a year down the road. I mean,
Exactly.
they can be life threatening.
Yeah, definitely. That's also what I say a lot to the managers that are hiring is think about the individual that will hire that will make your life easier because you have enough on your plate as a manager and how much you need to get done. You need to make sure your team's getting done. You want to bring additional people on the team that are going to make that easier for you. And a lot of the times it's hiring somebody that you think is stronger than yourself as a manager too, and not to be intimidated to do that. And understand what your weak spots are and who's going to be in part of your team that could make the team more successful.
Yeah, for sure. That actually brings up a good question. When you look at hiring for a function in any part of your business, how much weight do you put on looking at your like manager's strengths to round out their abilities? Is that like a core part of like how you think through it? Okay, we have a manager who's like really strong in these areas, so we need somebody to come in and to help supplement maybe the parts that they're a little weaker at, or I'm just wondering how much that kind of thought process happens.
Yeah, I could say on a personal level, that's something that I've done myself. I also say that to a lot of founders that are looking for their partners. A lot of times people come with great ideas and looking for their partner to build their great idea. That's how we started Justt. I had a really exciting idea and a lot of domain knowledge on how to do it, and I knew what I was really strong at, and I knew I needed to find a partner that had the things that I wasn't strong at. And it's something that you have to ground yourself and think about what you're really good at, what you really like doing too, what you want to focus on in the company, and who do you need to bring alongside with you to make the company a success. And that's how I was able to choose my partner and how we've been so successful together is of course the personal relationship, but also we each know what we're really good at. And it's something I give those tips to hiring managers that I work with who are looking for the next person on their team, but it's really up to the manager in the end, right?
Yeah.
What do they need? I can't make those decisions for the manager. I trust the manager that I've hired that,
You hire the right
that
manager.
exactly that
Right.
he'll build their team. I'm there to help him to support him and he can bounce ideas off of me and the rest of the team. But in the end, it's up to that manager who he wants to add to the team. And if it's something that he feels can strengthen a weakness or that's on the team and at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. I guess my next question, just to stick to our theme on building a global team, what would you say is, were there any mistakes along the way or biggest lessons learned or what was like the most challenging piece? And I can chime in here too on my own experience as well. Um,
Yeah,
First you
mistakes,
want.
of course. We're still making mistakes, right?
Right, yeah.
That's part of building a startup. You can't be afraid to make mistakes. The question is, do you learn from your mistakes? I think in the end, what I could say on my plate is believing in the team that you hire and handing over the keys to your team, which I'm learning and constantly working on, is how do you enable your team to be the decision makers and for them to make them feel that the weight is on their shoulders, the responsibility, they are the ones that are accountable. Of course, I'm there to support and I'm there to help, but they are the decision makers. They are accountable for their areas of the business and sometimes you have to let the ball drop too, even if you see it that it might drop. You have to the ball drop and let your team make mistakes. So not being afraid to let go, so the team can learn and work together, which connects back to what we spoke about before. Is I see a lot of the US and the UK team, they have to work with a lot of the team members in the Tel Aviv office, and they need to collaborate together. And I love being an ear to hear that they want to talk to me about certain things, but they need to work together to figure out how to solve those problems, which is hard. I mean, it's I'm seeing now is they do need FaceTime, and trying to figure out how we can give them more FaceTime because just having time on Zoom together is many times it's not enough, especially the ones that are working quite a lot together and making challenging choices together.
Yeah, I actually I believe in a lot. One thing we haven't talked about today is on in person, in office versus remote culture.
Yeah.
And I'm a big advocate of in office. My opinion on remote has actually changed considerably over the past 5 years. I suppose in 2021, 2022, when the market was exploding, there was I think probably in some cases, remote might have made sense depending on the growth opportunity for a company and how fast they needed to move and balancing how much they needed in office. Like what was going to give the company a bigger lift at that point in time when the market was insane and talent was very hard to come by. But I do think that there are certain aspects of in person that you can't have. You're not going to get remote, like the face to face. There's just some behavioral aspects of working together as a team. It is, everybody says kind of collaboration and strategy. It's that, but there's also just like more human elements that I think people don't emphasize enough. Like one of my customers was the founder of a company called Lending Home, which is a pretty big company in the United States. I think scaled to like $1 billion valuation. Now he started another company called Sunday. He started a company with a co-founder Airbnb. They raised over like 150 million. So this guy, he's repeat founder, very successful companies. And he talks about like the concepts of like loyalty and team building and having each other's backs and being able to pick up slack when somebody's out of office, like that type of dynamic where you're really fighting together as a team. There's this level of closeness that you get with your team where you really see them as like the whole person versus like the face on Zoom that does have a big impact on performance. And I've seen that and I really do value it. And then there's also like the stuff like you'll talk with people in different departments that you never would have, the conversations never would have happened on Zoom. You go out to lunch and you're talking about problems and you're solving problems. There's all of those types of conversations that occur in person that just never happen on Zoom.
Yeah, that's a great point. And to add to that, I'll even go down that path of when we first started the company, I had my own office and I'd have a lot of meetings and I'd sit in my office and then I'd come out of the office and talk, but I'd see most of the people like around the office and in my office during meetings. And certain point we decided as an executive team to step outside of the office and sit in the open space. And today I sit in the open space. Of course, when I'm in meetings, I go into an office for meetings, but I sit in the open space with the rest of the team because what I realized is, first of all, I want to be part of the team and I want them to feel like I'm accessible. There's a lot of ideas they want to bounce off of me, questions they want to ask. It's something I always say is keep asking questions until you ask questions we didn't ask ourselves, and that's how we're going to improve. And I feel like it really works in the Tel Aviv office. And I was like, how do I make that happen in the offices that, yeah, I fly, I meet the team every few months to see the teams in the other offices, but I don't get the same amount of face time. And that's what I keep telling the teams in the other offices is feel like I'm in the office with you. And you have a question, just throw the message in Slack. I'm there. I'll respond. We could jump on a quick call. We need a meeting. We'll jump on a quick meeting, but we have to use these lines of communication as though we're in the office together. If not, things are just going to drag on. Misunderstandings of what is actually needs to be done or what is the information that was explained because there's a lot of details in our solution. I always say that our solution is really domain expertise combined with technology, and that's where the magic happens. And some people come with domain knowledge in our space before joining Justt, and others don't. But we pick up that they're people they can learn and learn really fast. But you need to not be afraid to ask questions in order to get up to speed really quickly.
Yeah, I think that all is a little easier in person. And actually, what's funny is before we hit record, I was telling you about one of our customers with SimilarWeb. And you just what we're talking about reminds me of a conversation that I had with SimilarWeb when we were scaling out their team. Donna Dror, I don't know if you're familiar with the team over there, but I think she actually started as like when they were early stage as either account executive, I think, or sales manager. And it was one of her first jobs in tech. And by the time they IPO'd, she was general manager of North America, like overseeing all of the North America revenue. Just an incredibly sharp executive, right? Like one of the best I've ever worked with. And she was obsessed with just making sure her team had enough face time. And at that point, they were like a global team. And at times she was also meeting with folks in Europe and in Tel Aviv, and she was bouncing around, but she always found a way to get in front of her team. just because
Yeah.
she's also that's where regardless you can tell your team, yeah, hit me up on Slack. But sometimes they may not just like the level of detail, the types of questions, like they don't want to bother you. They're like, oh, Ronan has so much on his plate. So it's just getting in person. And honestly, it's in my experience just running my company, there's times where I'm not getting as much face time as I would like to. There's been situations where I have an employee in a certain, if they are remote, because we still do have some folks that are remote, um, getting on a plane just to go see them, right? Just for an afternoon. That kind of stuff, even if you just do it once or twice, it still makes a big impression in people's minds, right? Taking the time, finding a way to get in front of them.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we do that, both myself and Ophir. We've been doing that a lot, making sure that whether we're going to a conference or going to meetings abroad, we'll always stop in the offices. And if not, then we'll make a flight specifically for meetings with the teams and sessions with the teams. But what we're seeing now is it's not enough that just for us to fly in, and we need to also give the teams chances, more chances to meet each other, and starting to decide strategically who are the right people that you want to fly to meet each other face to face so that they can work better together.
And that does add a layer of complexity with global teams too, right? Because everybody's so busy.
Yeah.
And then you look at your managers, right? And it's okay, they're managing a function, they're hiring for their team, they're operating in multiple time zones, or at least need to figure out how to work in multiple time zones. And then you have the travel element. That's another thing that's it can be very challenging to balance and figure out like what the right balance is there, like particularly at a stage where it's like you're growing quickly and if you doubled in headcount over a couple of years, it's pretty tricky to do that.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's exciting that the team grows, but have to be aware of the challenges and make sure you have people on the ground in the different locations that you trust and you feel are resonating the Just culture and can help others that join the company understand what Just is all about. So and I say it now, I feel like when I visit each office, I feel like each office today is an extension of the Just culture, but in its own way. Each office has a very different vibe in some way, but also very similar, that they're all Just, but they're all unique in their own way of the atmosphere that has been created there.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Ronan, this has been it's been a lot of fun. We're coming up on time here. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining me on the show today. This was incredibly valuable. I know the executives and really everyone tuning in is going to be able to learn a lot from the lessons that you've learned building Justt. And I'm incredibly bullish on Just's future, just based on the caliber of people you do have on the team. At the end of the day, even if you're a tech company, people build product, right? Domain expertise, abilities, intelligence, all of those types of things, working together as a cohesive team. Literally nothing great has ever been built without people working together. That's an accurate statement, like nothing ever. Like, right? And so I think Justt is doing a great job pulling in the right people. Clearly it's working. And again, like your advice is incredibly valuable. So thanks for sharing it today.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And hey, for everybody tuning in, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care.